Sorry, this table's for family only. The words slid out of my brother Jacob's mouth with that smug little grin he's mastered since childhood. He didn't even look at me, just jabbed a finger toward a flimsy fold-out chair tucked beside the trash can. Laughter rippled across the table, glasses clinking, as though humiliating me was part of the celebration. I froze, my heels still clicking against the polished rooftop floor. For 33 years, I'd carried this family, quietly paying the bills, smoothing over their chaos, and showing up whether I was wanted or not. And yet, here I was, reduced to a punchline, exiled to the edge of the party I had literally paid to host. I smiled, the kind of smile that hides fire, and sat down alone. That night, in the middle of their glittering engagement dinner, I realized something. I wasn't family, at least, not to them, but they were about to learn exactly what that meant. I was born into a family that loved appearances more than honesty. If you saw us from the outside, you'd think we were the perfect suburban clan holiday cards with matching sweaters, big smiles at church picnics, and that carefully rehearsed, "We're so close," energy that fooled everyone. But inside it was a hierarchy, and I was never on top. My brother Jacob was the crown jewel. Blonde hair, easy charm, the kind of kid who could smash a neighbor's window with a baseball and somehow walk away with a plate of cookies for his trouble. Mom, Linda, adored him with a devotion that was almost blinding. Dad, Charles, looked at Jacob as though he were the living proof of his own legacy. And me? I was Emily, the dependable daughter, the background character in their family photo. From as far back as I can remember, I was the one who filled the cracks they left behind. When Jacob failed his classes, I tutored him through the finals. When he wrecked Dad's car, I worked overtime at my part-time job to help cover the insurance hike. When Mom forgot Aunt Susan's birthday, it was me who bought the flowers and signed the card in her handwriting. Everyone leaned on me because I never complained. At least, not out loud. But being invisible doesn't mean you don't notice. I noticed every time Jacob got away with things I would have been crucified for. Like the time I stayed out past curfew at 16, grounded for a month, phone confiscated. 2 years later, Jacob got caught sneaking beer into the basement, and Mom just laughed. Boys will be boys. Or when I earned a scholarship to college. The night I brought home the acceptance letter, Dad clapped me on the shoulder once, and then turned the conversation back to Jacob's new girlfriend. The next week, Jacob dropped out of community college entirely. They still threw him a barbecue. My role was cemented. I was the fixer, the responsible one, the person who held the scaffolding so their precious golden boy could shine. They didn't call me for celebrations. They called me when bills were late, when cars broke down, when somebody needed to be bailed out of a mess. And like the fool I was, I answered every single time. Still, some small, stubborn part of me hoped it would change. That one day they'd look past Jacob's chaos and see me not as a utility, not as a safety net, but as a daughter, a sister, a flesh and blood human being. That's why, when the call came about his engagement dinner, I didn't hesitate. I told myself it would be different this time. Maybe at last, after years of being their shadow, I'd be invited into the light. I didn't know then that light can blind just as easily as it can warm. It started with a phone call from my mother. "Emily, sweetheart?" she said in that sugar-coated tone she always used when she wanted something. I could practically hear her smile through the receiver. "We'd love for you to come to Jacob and Sophia's engagement dinner. It's going to be such a special night." My heart gave a little lurch. They wanted me there. Not just as the errand runner, not just as the backup plan, but as a guest, as family. "Of course," I said quickly, almost too quickly. "Just send me the details." There was a pause, the kind that makes your stomach tighten. Then, Mom lowered her voice, conspiratorial. "If it's not too much trouble, darling, we were hoping you might help with the reservation. Just to hold it. We'll pay you back, of course." I closed my eyes. That line, "will pay you back," was one I'd heard too many times before. Spoiler alert. They never did. But my mouth still formed the words, "Sure, Mom, I'll take care of it." I hung up and stared at the phone in my hand. I should have felt resentful, but instead a flicker of hope sparked. Maybe this was the cost of entry, the ticket into being included. If all it took was putting a deposit on a restaurant, maybe it was worth it. So I called around, comparing menus and rooftop views, wanting everything to be perfect. Finally, I booked a private space downtown, soft jazz, string lights, floral arrangements. It was far more extravagant than they could afford, which was exactly why they wanted me to do it. I gave the restaurant my card, swallowing the sting of the $700 non-refundable deposit. Just put it under Whitman, party of 20. I told the hostess, my voice steady, even as my pulse quickened. When I hung up, I allowed myself a smile. Maybe this was the beginning of something new. In the weeks leading up to the dinner, I bought a navy dress that made me feel elegant but not flashy. I polished my grandmother's earrings, the ones she'd given me before she passed. I even ordered a custom card for Jacob and Sophia, their initials embossed in silver foil, paired with a bottle of champagne I could barely afford. At night, I pictured it. Walking into that glowing rooftop restaurant, being welcomed, hugged, toasted. I imagined Jacob actually thanking me, Mom bragging about how thoughtful I was, Dad clinking his glass with mine. It was a fantasy, sure, but it kept me going. The truth was, I wanted so badly to believe this dinner would be different, that maybe, after decades of being overlooked, they'd finally pull out a chair and say, "Sit with us, you belong here." I didn't realize yet that they had every intention of keeping me exactly where I'd always been on the sidelines, smiling through the glass while the real family laughed inside. The night of the dinner, I arrived at exactly 7 o'clock. Punctuality was my religion. It was the one virtue nobody in my family could ever criticize. I'd taken extra time getting ready, navy dress pressed, heels polished, hair curled softly at my shoulders. I even dabbed on the perfume I'd been saving for something special. If tonight wasn't special, then what was? The rooftop restaurant glowed like a postcard. String lights crisscrossed overhead, warm against the dusky sky. The city skyline glittered in the distance. Soft jazz drifted from a corner trio, the upright bass humming low, the trumpets smooth as silk. Each table gleamed with white linens, delicate floral centerpieces, and flickering candles. It looked like a dream, one I hoped I was finally part of. I clutched the champagne and the embossed card in one hand, my purse in the other. As the hostess led me toward the private section, my chest tightened with something dangerously close to joy. This was the night they would see me. I stepped inside the cordoned area, and there they all were, my parents, Jacob, Sophia, her family, and a handful of friends. Laughter floated in the air, glasses clinked, people leaned in close over their cocktails like they were in on the best joke in the world. For a moment, no one noticed me. Then Jacob did. He turned, that familiar smirk already curling across his face, the kind of expression that said, "Watch this, everyone." "Oh, hey," he drawled, barely glancing at the champagne bottle in my hand. "Glad you could make it." I smiled, waiting for him to wave me over. Instead, he jabbed a finger toward the far corner of the space, toward a lonely fold-out chair wedged next to a silver trash bin. "Sorry, this table's for family only, but there's a spot for you right over there." For a second, I thought I'd misheard him. The words seemed to hang in the air, suspended, while the room held its breath. Then the laughter broke. Not everyone, but enough. My dad chuckled awkwardly. A couple of Sophia's relatives smirked. Even one of Jacob's friends let out a sharp bark of amusement. My mother didn't say a word. She gave me that tight-lipped smile I'd known all my life, the one that said, "Don't make a scene." Sophia didn't even look up from her glass of wine. Heat crept up my neck, stinging my ears. My grip tightened on the champagne until my knuckles ached. I wanted to speak, to shout, to demand they see me, but the words stuck in my throat. So I walked. Past the glowing table where they all sat, past the empty seat that should have been mine. I set my bottle beside the fold-out chair, smoothed my dress, and sat down alone, the trash bin humming faintly with the sour scent of leftovers. The music carried on. The conversation carried on. I sat there like a ghost haunting the edge of their celebration. A waiter approached. "Are you with the party, ma'am?" I nodded silently. He hesitated, then handed me a plain glass of water before retreating. From my corner, I watched everything. The toasts, the laughter, the affectionate arm squeezes, the sparkling diamond ring flashing under the string lights. Jacob gave a speech about being surrounded by his closest people, and my mother dabbed at tears when Sophia called her the best future mother-in-law. Not once did anyone look at me, and for the first time in my life, I realized I wasn't invisible. I was excluded on purpose. I tried to keep my posture straight as the minutes ticked by, but every second felt like a spotlight burning me Saturday. From my corner, I could see everything. The table glowed with laughter and movement, wine poured, plates passed, glasses clinking in chorus. I was just far enough away to be forgotten, but close enough to feel every sting. "Emily, don't look so serious," my father called once, raising his glass with a chuckle that didn't reach his eyes. "It's a party." A ripple of laughter followed, thin and awkward. Jacob smirked at me across the table, then leaned into Sophia to whisper something that made her giggle. My mother gave me a tight smile, mouthing the words "lighten up," as if I were the problem here. I forced myself to take a sip of water, pretending not to hear. But the words echoed anyway. Too serious, too sensitive, always working, always uptight. The same lines they'd used for years to reduce me to nothing more than a caricature. The jazz band shifted into a brighter tune. Waiters carried out plates of seared salmon and roasted vegetables, setting them neatly in front of everyone at the main table. No one asked if I'd like to order. No one even glanced in my direction. My stomach growled, but I pressed my palms flat against my dress and willed myself to stay still. I thought about all the times I'd said yes. Yes to covering part of my parents' mortgage when Dad's hours got cut. Yes to helping Jacob pay off a speeding ticket he swore he'd handle himself. Yes to rearranging my life so they could lean on me, again and again. And here I was, repaid with a chair beside a trash bin. At one point, Jacob raised his glass and clinked it loudly. "To family," he said, beaming. The table roared in agreement, voices overlapping. "To family." I felt the words slice through me. I was in the room, but not included. Present, but not counted. Family, but not family. I stared at the skyline beyond the string lights, trying to blink away the burn in my eyes. A part of me wanted to stand up, throw the champagne bottle across the table, and scream. Another part wanted to shrink smaller and smaller until I disappeared entirely. Instead, I stayed frozen, hands trembling in my lap, as the evening stretched on. An hour passed, then another. Conversations flowed like wine, endless and indulgent. They opened gifts Sophia cooed over a designer clutch. Jacob grinned at a set of engraved whiskey glasses. Each cheer, each "thank you," felt like another brick wall built higher between us. No one asked me to join. No one even asked if I was doing okay. By the time dessert arrived, a towering, layered cake dusted with edible gold flakes, the air around their table buzzed with warmth and closeness. Mine felt cold, empty, the silence pressing down like a weight. That's when I realized something that chilled me more than the November night air outside. They weren't ignoring me accidentally. They were enjoying it. My exclusion was entertainment. Jacob glanced at me once, smirked again, and leaned back in his chair like a king surveying his kingdom. And then, just as I thought the humiliation was complete, the waiter reappeared. In his hands was a small leather folder. He walked toward the glowing table, paused, then glanced down at his notes. I saw his eyes flick toward me. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said softly as he approached. "The total for tonight is $5,200. Should I run this on the same card you used for the deposit?" Every head at the main table turned toward me. The room went silent. The waiter's words sliced through the hum of jazz and laughter like a blade. $5,200. Should I run this on the same card you used for the deposit? It was as if the city itself went silent. Forks hovered midair, glasses paused halfway to lips. 20 pairs of eyes turned to me, some curious, some expectant, others smug. Jacob leaned back in his chair, draping an arm over the backrest, like he was posing for a magazine spread. His smirk was slow, deliberate. "Emily's got it," he said casually, as though it were the most obvious thing in the world. A few chuckles bubbled at the table, followed by the shuffle of napkins and the scraping of chairs, as if the verdict had already been decided. "Emily pays." Emily always pays. Heat surged into my chest, racing up my neck until my face burned. My fingers dug into the clutch in my lap. I could hear my own heartbeat over the distant trumpet. I stood, slowly. The waiter shifted, uncertain, the leather folder still extended in my direction. I gave him a calm smile, one that felt like glass over fire. My voice came steady, even. "Not my table," I said. For a moment, no one breathed. Jacob's smirk faltered, just slightly. "What?" I let the words roll louder this time, each syllable deliberate. "Not my table. I was told this table's for family only." The silence cracked into fragments, a sharp intake of breath from Sophia's mother. My own father clearing his throat, as if he could swallow the tension whole. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line, eyes darting like she was calculating the quickest way to cover this up. Jacob laughed, too loud, too forced. "Oh, come on, Em. Don't be dramatic. It's just a joke. Lighten up, pay the bill, and we'll call it even." Something inside me snapped. I stepped closer, the click of my heels echoing against the rooftop floor. "Even?" My voice cut like a knife. "I paid the deposit. I called 3 restaurants until I found one with a rooftop view because you wanted it. I arranged the date around your football schedule. I ordered custom flowers because Mom said fake ones would look cheap in photos. I did all of that. And what did I get?" I turned, gesturing toward the lonely chair by the trash bin. "That, a folding chair and a reminder that I'm not family." The air thickened, pressing against my skin. I could feel every eye locked on me. "You think I'm dramatic?" I said, my tone sharper now, trembling with fury I'd buried for decades. "No, Jacob. I'm done. I didn't eat. I didn't drink. I wasn't welcome. So I won't be paying. This is your table, your night, your bill." The waiter shifted uncomfortably, glancing from me to the others. "Sir, ma'am, someone needs to cover the check." My father sat up straighter, his voice stern. "Emily, come on. You already paid for half. You might as well finish it." I froze, the words slamming into me harder than any insult Jacob had ever thrown. You already paid for half. That was all I'd ever been half. Half seen, half respected, half loved, but expected to give whole pieces of myself, every time. I looked at him, my jaw tight. "You're right, Dad. I did pay for half. I've always paid for half or more. The mortgage, the loans, the favors. Every single time you needed something, I gave. And tonight you showed me exactly what that means to you." I let my voice rise, sharp enough to carry over the jazz. "It means nothing, because when it mattered, when it was about family, you shoved me next to the trash can." Jacob's face flushed red, creeping up his neck. "You're making a scene." I laughed, the sound raw, startling even myself. "No, Jacob, I'm finally drawing a line." I turned back to the waiter. "I won't be paying. Not this time. Not ever again." Gasps scattered around the table. Sophia's father stared at Jacob, his brows drawn tight. Sophia's glass of wine trembled in her hand. My mother's eyes narrowed, as if she could will me back into submission. But I didn't shrink. For the first time in my life, I didn't shrink. I slipped my clutch over my shoulder, lifted my chin, and walked past the glowing table, past the shocked stares, past the string lights that had once seemed so beautiful. As I reached the exit, I paused, just long enough to deliver the final cut. "Enjoy your family dinner." And I left them to choke on the silence I'd carved into the night. I expected silence when I left that rooftop. Instead, my phone lit up like fireworks the second I got home. The first text came from Jacob. "Seriously? You couldn't just pay the check and talk to me after?" Then another, seconds later. "You embarrassed me in front of Sophia's family. Grow up, Emily." I tossed the phone on the counter, but it buzzed again. "This time, Mom. Sweetheart, I don't know what got into you tonight, but you made us all look bad." Sophia's parents were horrified. "Was that really your goal?" My chest tightened. It wasn't guilt, I'd given too much of that away already. It was rage, disbelief that they still couldn't see what they'd done. The screen lit up again, this time with a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Emily?" The voice was soft, uncertain. It was Sophia. I froze. "Yes? I just wanted to ask you something. Did you really pay for everything? The deposit, the flowers, all of it? I sank onto the edge of my couch. Yes, I did. They asked, and I said yes. I didn't do it for attention, Sophia. I just wanted to be included. There was silence on the other end. Then she whispered, "My dad thought you volunteered as a kind gesture. He's furious now. He says Jacob and your parents made him look like a fool." My heart twisted. Not for Jacob, for Sophia. For the realization cracking through her perfect engagement. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "You don't need to be," she replied. "They do." When we hung up, I sat there in the dark, the city lights spilling across my living room. My hands trembled, but not from fear. From adrenaline, from the surreal knowledge that I'd finally said no, and the world hadn't ended. The fallout, however, was just beginning. By morning, the family group chat, usually dormant except for recycled holiday gifts, was on fire. "Dad, this is getting out of hand. Apologize, Emily, and let's move on. Mom, please call us. We need to fix this before it ruins everything. Jacob, you owe me. Fix it now." I stared at the screen, then set my phone down. No reply. It wasn't just about the bill. It was about the years of being their emergency fund, their scapegoat, their silent scaffolding. They didn't know what to do now that I'd finally stepped out from under the weight. Later that afternoon, a mutual friend of Jacob's, one of the few who'd ever treated me kindly, called to fill me in. "Sophia's dad lost it at brunch today," he said. He told Jacob straight out, "If they treat their own blood this way, what happens when you marry into it?" I closed my eyes, letting the words sink in. For once, someone else saw it. Not just me screaming into a void. Someone outside the family recognized the cruelty. The walls Jacob had built on charm and entitlement were starting to crack. And I hadn't lifted a finger, except to say no. The cracks widened faster than anyone expected. 2 days after the dinner, Sophia called me again. Her voice was quieter this time, stripped of the polished confidence she'd carried at the rooftop. "I talked to the restaurant manager," she said. "He showed me the invoices. You paid for everything, the deposit, the flowers, even the special seating arrangements." I let out a humorless laugh. "Yeah, that's what family asked me to do." She was silent for a long moment. "Then, Jacob told me you insisted. He said you wanted to pay, that you chose to sit at the side table because you're introverted, that you left early because of a work emergency." I felt my stomach twist. "None of that's true. He lied, and my parents backed him up." Her voice trembled. "I know. My dad's furious. He says Jacob humiliated you and deceived us. He thinks marrying into your family would be a disaster." I almost pitied her. Almost. He's not wrong. By the end of that week, the engagement was over. Sophia returned the ring. Her father canceled the venue, the vendors, everything. The carefully curated Pinterest boards vanished overnight. Jacob's text the next morning was frantic, a sharp contrast to his smug rooftop smirk. "Brooke's dad canceled everything. Sophia's gone. Fix this, Emily. Please." I didn't reply. That evening, he called. His voice cracked with desperation. "You can't just abandon me like this. I need help, money for rent, for dinners with Sophia. She's giving me another chance if I can prove myself." I cut him off. "Jacob, you told me I wasn't family. You don't get to use my money if I'm not even allowed at the table." He sputtered, switching tactics like he always did. "You're jealous. Admit it. You've always hated that I was the one they loved more." For the first time in years, I laughed, really laughed. "No, Jacob, I hated that I let it go on for so long." That night, I logged into the old joint account my parents had begged me to open for Jacob, just until he got back on his feet. He'd linked his gym membership and Spotify to it, still using it like it was his personal safety net. I moved the remaining funds, just a couple thousand, into a private account under my name. Then I called the bank and closed the joint line for good. The next morning, my phone exploded again. 4 missed calls, then 5. I answered the 6th. "What did you do?" Jacob's voice was ragged. "I closed it," I said simply. "You can't just—" "I can, and I did." My tone was calm, steady. "You wanted me out of the family? Congratulations, I'm out, and so is my money." For once, Jacob didn't have a comeback. The line went dead. By the end of the week, word spread. Friends who had ridden Jacob's coattails stopped answering his calls. Sophia blocked him. My parents were scrambling, sending me long, sugar-coated emails about misunderstandings and family bonds, but I didn't feel guilty. Not this time. For the first time in decades, I felt free. The golden boy's shine was gone, and I hadn't lifted him up this time. I'd let him fall. A week later, there was a knock at my door. When I opened it, my mother stood on the porch holding a glass container of lasagna, like it was some kind of peace offering. Her eyes were swollen, makeup faint, shoulders smaller than I remembered. "Hi, sweetheart," she said softly. "I brought you dinner." For a moment, I just stared at her. The same woman who had smiled tightly while her son humiliated me. The same mother who had texted me, accusing me of embarrassing the family. I opened the door wider, but only a crack. "Why are you here, Mom?" She stepped inside cautiously, sitting at my kitchen table as though she wasn't sure if she was allowed. Her hands fidgeted with the lasagna lid. "I just wanted to talk. No excuses." She looked up, her eyes wet. "I owe you an apology." I folded my arms. "Just one?" Her lips trembled. She nodded. "Probably more than one. We leaned on you for too long. We treated you like scaffolding. Something always there, holding everything up. And Jacob," she exhaled sharply, "we let him treat you like less. I didn't want to see it, but I see it now." I stayed quiet. For once, I didn't rush in to fill the silence, to make it easier for her. I let her sit with the weight of it. Finally, she whispered, "I know a lasagna and a sorry can't fix years of imbalance, but I just wanted you to know I understand now. You deserved better." My throat tightened. Not forgiveness, not yet, but recognition, something I'd been starving for all my life. I nodded once. "Thank you." She didn't ask me to call Jacob. She didn't beg me to fix the engagement. She simply stood, touched my shoulder lightly, and said, "Take care of yourself." Then she left. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't being pulled back into the same cycle. In the weeks that followed, I began to live differently. I booked the trip to Spain I'd postponed for years. I bought noise-canceling headphones and devoured books on boundaries, on family dynamics, on quiet strength. I started seeing a therapist, not because I was broken, but because I was done waiting for someone else to fix me. Healing, I realized, doesn't come when your family finally says sorry. It comes when you look in the mirror and say, "I deserved better, and I gave it to myself." I still don't know if I'll go to Thanksgiving. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But if I do, it will be on my terms. Because I'm no longer sitting beside the trash can. I'm at my own table now. And for the first time in my life, that's more than enough.